All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. So a lot of people like to speculate if Lee Priest were competing today in the 212 division, that he would be an absolutely dominant force in the 212. So I wanted to make a video kind of comparing Lee Priest, all of the mandatory poses, comparing him to Flex Lewis, who is the 212 Olympia champ and has been for the past several years. So the first shot we're going to look at is the front double bicep pose. So in the front double bicep pose, obviously, I think that's Lee Priest pose. So I'm going to give the front double bicep pose to Lee. I think obviously the biceps are just a lot more round. There's a lot better shape to him. I think he looks a little bit wider when he hits the front double bicep than Flex Lewis looks. His lats seem to flare a little bit better, in my opinion. So I think Lee definitely takes the front double bicep pose. I think that definitely belongs to Lee. So next up, we have the back double bicep pose. Now, I think definitely Flex kills Lee from the back. So especially from behind, Flex just really has a great back. He's got great glutes. His hamstrings look really good. He's just got a lot of detail and separation in his back that Lee just doesn't seem to have. Now, Lee does seem to have a little bit more thickness, maybe a little bit more width, but I think the back double bicep shot, we would have to give that to Flex. All things considered, you have to consider the way the glutes look, the way the hamstrings look. And I think, the lower portion of his back looks a lot better than Lee's. So I think he takes that. So the next pose we have is the front lat spread. I think I'm going to have to give this pose to Lee as well. I think you can just see his lats a lot better from the front than you can Flex's. And I think Lee's chest looks a little bit better than Flex's chest in that front lat spread pose as well. Their quad separation looks pretty comparable in that pose. So overall, I'm going to have to give this shot to Lee just by a little edge there. So the next shot that we have is the back lat spread or the rear lat spread. So I think this is a pretty comparable shot again, but I think it's going to come down to basically the striations in the glutes and the hamstrings. So I think Flex basically has a lot better just detail and conditioning when it comes to the lower portion of his back and his legs. There's a lot more detail, but I think Lee definitely does have a little bit wider of a back, maybe a little bit thicker of a back, but the detail on Flex's back I think just really overwhelms Lee. So I'm going to have to give this pose to Flex. So the next pose that we have here is the side chest pose. So I think I'm going to definitely have to give this pose to Lee. If you're looking mostly at the side chest and the upper body, I think Lee definitely takes that, by a long shot. But you also have to consider how the legs look from the side as well in this pose. So I think if you're considering the legs too, that definitely makes it a very close call. But I think really what you're looking at is the chest because it is the side chest pose. So the chest and the arms and the delts. So I think if that's the main focus of this pose, we have to give that pose to Lee. So the next pose we're going to look at here is the most muscular pose. So Lee kind of hits like a crab most muscular pose where he clasps his hands, and Flex kind of hits a different variation of the most muscular. So personally, I think Lee has a better most muscular by far. He just looks a lot rounder and fuller, and he just has that crazy freak factor when he pulls off the most muscular. Flex looks really good in his most muscular, but I just don't think he really has that freak factor that Lee has when he hits his. So I'm going to have to give this pose to Lee as well. So the next pose we have is the abs and thighs. So I'm going to have to give this pose to Flex because he just shows a lot more separation in his quads. I think Lee's abs look a little bit better than Flex's, but overall this is the abs and thighs pose. And I think Flex's thighs look a lot better than Lee's in this pose. So I'm going to have to give this pose to Flex. So the next pose that we're going to have coming up here is the side tricep pose. So I think this is definitely Lee's pose. Again, Lee is definitely very well known for his arm development, especially in his triceps. So I think if you're looking at a pose that's called the side tricep, you're mainly looking at the arms and a little bit of the chest and kind of how the midsection looks as well. Now, granted, I think Flex's legs, again, do look better from the side, but overall the focus of this pose is really the arms and the chest. So overall, I'm going to have to give this pose to Lee as well. So when you total all the poses, we have Lee winning 5 of the mandatory shots, and we have Flex winning 3 of the mandatory shots. So in my opinion, I think Lee would beat Flex in a head-to-head competition. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. If Lee and Flex went head-to-head on stage, who do you think would win, and who do you have winning each of these shots? Please give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.